Welcome into the 25th edition of College Football Smothered and Covered. My name's Barrett Salee. As you can see, we are back. We are live. We are in the home studio for the 25th episode of the revamped edition of College Football Smothered and Covered. Yes, it is 5:30 in the afternoon on a Friday afternoon. Not the best time to go live, not the best time to produce a podcast, but what do we say on the show all the time? We're here for you, the college football fan. We're all one part of a greater ecosystem. If you're listening to Pate, if you're listening to Piquel, if you're listening to Bratton, whatever, we are here to deliver you great content, great discussion, and great college football news wherever you are. It's the most undercovered sport on the planet, and that's why I'm sitting here at 5:30. An hour after I got back from the airport after sitting on a tarmac for 2 hours in Orlando, talking a little bit about college football. So obviously there's a reason that we're doing this right now. And the reason is the College Football Playoff Board of Managers keep trying to screw things up. However, things are starting to work. Our fight here on College Football Smothered and Covered seems to be working. So we're going to talk a lot about what that means. We'll also talk a little bit about Chip Kelly and some of his comments, I should say, after joining the Ohio State staff. If you have comments, we are doing this live, so feel free to drop them in the chat. I will do my best to answer them rapid fire style after we kind of get through some content breaks and things like that. But don't forget to go to breakingt.com/smothered and covered, breakingt.com/smothered and covered. A great shirt right here from Breaking T. There's only one Death Valley. Is that a shot at Clemson? Yeah, it kind of is. But LSU fans, you can have this shirt. Go to breakingt.com/smothered and covered, and you'll be able to see it. You'll be able to buy it. Lots of different LSU content, lots of different shirts for all of the college football fans around the world, and a lot of NIL content as well. If you like a player, check breakingt.com. They might have some officially licensed content, NIL content with that player. I know Tennessee fans, you love Nico Iamaleava. A lot of Nico shirts out there as well. So go to breakingt.com/smothered and covered. Also, you know me, I'm a Braves fan. If you want to go get ready for the Braves season, for the Major League Baseball season, go to breakingt.com/Barrett. I just saw Crime Dog Fred McGriff shirt pop, as well as a Glavin shirt. Could be seeing Chipper, could be seeing Andrew as well. So breakingt.com/smothered and covered, breakingt.com/Barrett. The College Football Board of Managers, your pressure. If you've listened to this show, you know how I feel about the people that run this sport. The people that run this sport, specifically the people who run the meaningful postseason, they hate you. They don't like you. And through all of this talk, through all of the things they've been going through in terms of expanding the postseason to 14 teams before the 12-team event even starts, what don't they mention? They don't mention worth. They don't mention excellence. They don't even mention settling it on the field. They talk about money. They talk about governance. And they talk about access. And here we are on a Friday afternoon. You still get a lot of the same stuff from the stories that are out there from people like Heather Dinich and Ross Dellinger, both of whom do a tremendous job covering the administrative side of this sport. So if you missed this afternoon, now I didn't because I was stuck on a tarmac for 2 hours in Orlando, coming back from Disney World. So let me tell you how much fun that was. So I'm in a little bit of a bad mood, that's why. But saw a lot of this stuff pop while I was sitting there in the airplane. And look, there are a couple things from these meetings that stand out first. And this is the big thing. And I want you to really, really focus on this. And this is from Ross over at Yahoo. The concept of the Big Ten and the SEC holding exclusive rights over the two first-round buys in a 14 format has received enough pushback that many expect it to be tabled. Not the playoff itself, not the expanded playoff, but the Big Ten and the SEC holding exclusive rights over those first-round buys. It's starting to work. Our pressure, our pushback is starting to work. Now, Are those decisions, and is that pushback being felt by the public? No. What's really happening is that the ACC, the Big 12, and the lesser conferences, they're all kind of sitting around going, wait, whoa, 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 whoa. We're cooking Thanksgiving dinner too. You're not going to bring us the pecan pie? The warm pecan pie with cookie dough ice cream on top melting? You're not going to bring us that? We're helping you expand this playoff to 14 teams. And the pushback, I think, is immense. It's enough for them to sit back and say, you know what? We can't do this. We can't cook this Thanksgiving dinner the way that we want to cook this dinner. So where's that pushback coming from? Like, what's the foundation for this pushback? Well, it's you and me. Not to say that we control this discussion, but when you look at the ACC and when you look at the Big 12, and they already know that they're getting shortchanged in terms of access and, as we will see, revenue as well. What do you think happens when they hear from every single administrator in their conference, every single fan base goes into uproar saying, whoa, what about us? What about us? This revenue thing is stupid. So why are we getting the short end of the stick if we, at least in the past, have had the same amount of power? Well, that's going to help. That's going to help. If you're Brett Yormark and suddenly, I don't know, a couple of powerful Oklahoma State power brokers or Deion Sanders, since Colorado's coming into the conference, come to you and say, hey, you know what? Like, this isn't fair. This isn't, I know college football isn't fair. Nothing in life is fair, but this is pretty ridiculous that we did all we can to revamp our conference and you're not doing your job. You're trying to salvage anything, and you're going to basically willingly admit and suck it up to say, hey, you know what? We're not one of the big two. There is no Power Four. That's not something that should be overlooked. I mean, look, those coaches, those boosters, they all understand how messed up this situation is. Hell, even the boosters in the SEC, even the boosters in the Big Ten have to recognize how messed up this situation is. Hell, they're telling you. Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey are telling you because they're admitting and they're saying, flat out saying, that they bring more money in. They are screwing college football up. Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti, and I've said this numerous times, I had all the hope in the world that Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti were going to do right by college football, that they were going to serve as the de facto czars. Sure, it's not one, but two, whatever. And then they do this crap. They convince conference commissioners, the CFP board of managers, administrators through all of the conferences outside of the SEC and Big Ten that they're better than them. You know what? The SEC isn't. The Big Ten isn't. Yeah, sure. They've got some better football teams now. Great. That's fine. Does that mean that they deserve more of a shot because historically they've been better? No, I don't care what happened in 2023, 2022, 2018, whatever. In this day and age, any team can build itself into a power. Now, the problem is all the money has flown in those directions. And granted, again, getting back to what we've talked about for a long time, it is money. Now, that's their job to remain financially solvent. I get that. But those of you who have wanted expansion to settle it on the field, you see what's happening now. There are two chefs in a kitchen trying to cook Thanksgiving dinner for 130 others. And they're basically telling them what's going to be on that dish and how much of a size they're going to get. You're talking about two conference commissioners telling the entire FBS world what's going to be on that plate. They don't even get to go to the buffet. Some of them might not even see the pecan pie for dessert. Again, this is what you asked for. It's a slippery slope. They're not talking about settling it on the field. They're talking about revenue, governance, and access. And none of those three things has anything to do with a champion, with settling it on the field, because they don't care. They just don't care. And it's sad because I thought differently of the Big Ten and the SEC. I thought differently of Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey, and I was wrong. Check this one out. Perfect example. CFP headed for a revenue model that draws a formal line between the Power 2 and Other 2 with a $300 million gap. $300 million. But this is the kicker. Would the Power 2 really leave if they say no? And that's the question we have to sort of ask next. Would the SEC and Big Ten leave? Now, I was burned by Petitti and I was burned by Sankey about a month and a half ago. So, look, I might be burned again. Fully admit, I might be burned again. The Big Ten and the SEC will not leave. The Big Ten and the SEC will not break away. It's a leverage play. It's all it is. It's a leverage play. You ask for what you really, really, really want in a perfect world, and you settle for what you can get. And that's all the SEC and Big Ten are doing. Now, there's been enough pushback from everybody else talking about the other 8 commissioners. Well, if you count the Pac-2, there's been enough pushback from them. Could have been generated from this show, could have been generated from their own fan bases or whatever. There is pushback. So they're going to threaten that again. Just you watch. Just you watch. I bet you next week, you're going to see a bunch of stories, anonymous sources that say this is really happening. The SEC and Big Ten are going to leave. Do not believe it. Do not believe it, because it's not real. They're not going to leave. What they're going to try to do then is they're going to try to set themselves up in a position of power again, because clearly they have lost a little bit of power in these negotiations. I mean, that's clear as day right now. They're going to try to get that upper hand again. It's like Seinfeld. Who has the hand? I've got hand, right? So expect a lot of that next week. What really they're trying to do, what's going to end up happening, is that they're probably going to end up settling on this ridiculous exclusive automatic bids proposal, exclusive bids for the Big Ten and the SEC, more access. Hate that word, access for the SEC and Big Ten. But like we said earlier in the show, the pressure is starting to work. The pressure is starting to work. But we have to keep it up. We have to let it be known, whether you're on X or TikTok, whatever, or just even if you have the phone number of your athletic director, we have to make it known that this is not what college football is supposed to be. We are supposed to crown a champion. We are not supposed to crown the best of a certain specific set of teams that have selfish conference commissioners. That's not what it's about. Now, we've gone down the slippery slope of access. There's not much we can do about that now. Can't put that toothpaste back in the tube. Just can't do it. But the pressure exists. So we'll see if that changes. Let's hit the comments real quick. Brandon Dodson, preach, Barrett. The BCS was right all along. It was, Brandon. It was. The BCS was a great system. And as I've said multiple times, it got it right every single year. Now, I know Auburn fans will sit back and say, whoa, what about 2004? Well, as an Auburn fan growing up, a season ticket holder growing up, an alum, a man with Auburn friends all over the place who I just want to see happy. I don't care who wins, but if they're happy, I'm happy. So if Auburn wins, yeah, good. They're going to be happier. I can actually hang out with them and not be miserable. That's awesome. But the BCS got it right. Even that year, it got it right. You didn't hear meaningful and meaningless in the BCS era. Everything mattered. Everything mattered. Bowl games mattered. Individual success mattered. Seasons coming out of nowhere. Robert Griffin III mattered. Do you think we'd have really been... Okay, here's what. Would Robert Griffin III have won the Heisman Trophy in 2011 in the non-BCS era? Assuming Baylor was not in the mix for the 4-team college football playoff? Nope. I firmly believe that. He would have deserved it. But with all the focus on the playoff, you wouldn't have appreciated that season as much as you did. So the BCS had it right. You had meaningful, meaningless. Those weren't even in the discussion. And it was awesome. So yes, Brandon, they got it right. Sidelines, Texas State, let them go. The Big 12, ACC, Pac-2, and the G5 can be where the real college football is. No thanks to letting the Big 10 and SEC having more auto bids. I'm with you on no thanks for the BCS and or for the auto bids. The ACC, Big 12, Pac-2, and G5, if they were to break away, then you'd kind of be talking about the USFL and NFL back. I mean, I'm dating myself here. I mean, look, honestly, I don't even remember this except for that Herschel Walker got drafted by the USFL and played there. You'd kind of have that, and obviously, look what happened to the USFL, the first edition, not the one that was 3-4 years ago. That's what it would turn into. Could that be a spring league? I don't know. Whatever. But I don't think that would happen. But the auto bids thing, fully with you. All right, check this one out. This is another one from Ross. This made me chuckle. Honestly, this made me chuckle because when you see this, I mean, it makes my head hurt. Not Ross. I love Ross. I went to Auburn, so math is not my strong suit. They barely taught us that. But look at how ridiculous this is. Multiple variations: a 3-3-2-2, 1 + 3, a 2-2, 1-1, 1 + 7, and a 5 + 9. I mean, seriously? The one that makes sense out of this is probably the 5-9, 5 highest ranked conference champions and a 9 at large. But think about what we've done now. We've gone from top 4 in a subjective boardroom, which I'm loving a lot more now. I hated it when it started, but I'm clearly love it a lot more now because of what it led to. We're then into a 6-6 12-teamer, or now what turned into a 5-7 12-teamer because of the demise of the Pac-12. And now we're into potentially a 14-team one that has what looks like, I don't know, second-year college math attached to it. Honestly, of all the things we talk about, I'm going to leave this tweet up. Of all the things we talk about, this just encapsulates how stupid this whole thing is. It makes my head hurt. I mean, this is how ridiculous. You have to have different formats of 6 and 7 digits to figure out who the national champion is. And why? Because they don't care who the national champion is. Because all those numbers do is provide access. And access, it sucks joy out of the season. Access sucks joy out of the season. Because when you watch the regular season of college football, you can enjoy everything. If you want to focus on the playoff, fine. It gets force-fed down your throat, and it sucks. And general fans out there, casual fans, they eat it up. Those college football loyalists like myself, we focus on other things as well, and we love that part. But if you're going to have a postseason like that, I mean, you're taking the entire regular season and saying, look, it doesn't matter. So I hate that. I hate that. But here we are. It's a slippery slope. It's the slippery slope we warned you about. We warned you about this, and yet nobody seemed to listen. But here we are. Reminder, go to breakingt.com/smothered and covered. breakingt.com/smothered and covered. I'm showing you this Death Valley one because there was a tweet that I saw when I was at Epcot yesterday before flying back to Atlanta. It was a picture of Brian Kelly, and it said, "What has this man done to be elite?" And I responded like, "Well, he won close to 300 games, lost only just over 100, and has been successful everywhere he goes." That's why. But part of the reason is Death Valley is a difficult place to play. So go to breakingt.com/smothered and covered. You can get this one. If you're a fan of somebody else other than LSU, definitely take a look because they've got all kinds of shirts. breakingt.com/smothered and covered. Wear the moment. All right. Last thing, now that we've gotten all of the college football rant out of the way, I neglected to talk about this 2 days ago when I did the audio only version from from Disney World. Chip Kelly going from UCLA as the head coach with the Bruins to the offensive coordinator at Ohio State. It made a lot of waves, right? And I think it's probably become the sort of centerpiece, the focal point of a larger discussion about the coaching calendar and lives that coaches live now. And I want to contrast it with something I talked about with an assistant coach earlier this week, where when you're an assistant and you're going somewhere new, you can only really achieve success, work-life balance, get the pacing right, things like that. If you go to a school that has an established CEO, treat it like a business, right? And I hate bureaucracies. I hate all this stuff, but it's totally true. If you have a leader that runs a business the right way, then you're going to find success. And that's what I think Chip Kelly's running into. Talking to some folks out west, UCLA was a mess from an organizational standpoint. It was a mess, not having anything to do with football, just responsibility-wise, when you take vacations, when you're expected to be back in the office, what you're allowed to do when you're not at the office, things like that. I heard UCLA, I've talked to many folks, UCLA was a mess in that department. Ohio State is not. And this coach I was talking to earlier this week is not associated with UCLA or Ohio State, but made a really clear point that when you let a coach build his program, more or less build his corporate structure, you have to give it a couple years. And Ryan Day has done that. And there are other schools around there too. Nick Saban, Alabama, they knew exactly what they could do, when they could do it, why they could do it. Not talking football, like general responsibilities. Because we all need that. We don't want to live in a free-for-all where we have no idea what's expected of us at work. Now Chip Kelly knows, because I don't think Chip Kelly could do that anymore. I think he was sick of it. So basically he said, look, guys, I'm out. I'm doing something different. So I think he can succeed there. But I think it goes to a larger conversation about what makes a good coach and a bad coach. You look at how Kirby Smart organized Georgia when he got there. Yeah, it took him a year to sort of find his stride in terms of how he operates as a head coach. The next season, they go to the national championship game. Down at Florida, I don't think Billy Napier's done that. I think Billy Napier is still trying to figure out how to structure his corporation. And as a result, you got coaches leaving, you got coaches staying, you got players not understanding the responsibility. And it all leads to mediocrity. I think that might have been where UCLA was headed in a new look Big Ten. I think that's where Florida might be going. So not only is it an idea of, hey, coaches don't want to deal with this crap anymore. They don't want the responsibilities that have evolved that they were not prepared for going into the season, going into their careers. But I'm happy for Chip. I can't wait to see what happens there at Ohio State. But just two things kind of popped in my head when I saw those quotes a couple days ago from Chip Kelly. So organizationally, keep an eye on which programs give their coaches time and what they're allowed to do with that time. Because there has to be synergy between the AD and the coach. But younger coaches need to find a way to learn from their mistakes and learn from them quickly and operate a corporation as a corporation and not a football program. That'll do it for this edition of College Football Smothered and Covered. Appreciate you checking out the show. Yes, it is a Friday afternoon. Yes, that's not exactly the right time to be doing this, but like I said, got back from Disney World after a 2-hour stay, 2-hour wait on the tarmac in Orlando. A lot going on. I spent plenty of time scrolling through my phone, waiting for the weather to clear here in Atlanta so we can get in the air. But yeah, you guys enjoy your weekend. No weekend feast this weekend because we have sort of been sporadic in terms of when we actually are posting these podcasts. But I promise you, next week we will be back to a full go. Every weekday, we'll be here for you. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. If something does break, we'll pop. But until then, I'll talk to you Monday.